Tiger fans, it is time for the round 3 debrief from the game against St Kilda. Unfortunately, the result didn't go our way. St Kilda, 20 goals, 15, 135, defeated Richmond 7-11-53 by 82 points. The Saints just far too good in that second half to put a big margin on us in 2 quarters of football, essentially. But look, our games are going to be a tale of 2 halves for quite some time. And when I say some time, I'm talking about this year, next year as well. It's just unfortunately where we're at in terms of our football development, our inexperience, and a whole raft of things all rolled into one, that we will see some good quarters here and some good quarters there. But it's all about, this journey is about trying to bridge that gap in our inconsistency and between our best and our worst to start becoming a more consistently good side, which, you look at someone like Hawthorn when Sam Mitchell took over, he was having the same struggles, built his list, built his game plan, and all of a sudden they're up and they're flying now. So it does take time, unfortunately, and we are going to have to deal with a lot of these types of games, whether we like it or not. That's just the reality of where we're at. But look, there were some small positives to take out of it, and that's what we have to look for each week, is the small positives that come from all of these games, because that's all we're going to really see for the foreseeable future. So before we get stuck into looking at all of the plays individually, make sure you like and subscribe for more Richmond content. We appreciate all the love and support. It's going to be a big and tough year for all of us, so make sure you jump on board, share your thoughts. You can vent, you can do whatever you've got to do. It's all about, we're all riding in this big roller coaster together. With that said, we'll go through the playing list. We'll talk about disposals first, I guess. Jaden Short led the way with disposals with 26 touches, 6 marks, 2 tackles, 3 clearances. And look, while I'm happy for Shorty to get 26, it probably speaks a little bit about our midfield not being able to top that disposal chart. And I know not everyone can get 30 touches every week. But I think for teams to win games and to be in the hunt to win games, you kind of need 1 or 2 of your mids to be getting that 28 to 35 touches a week, I think, and doing something with them as well. Like, they can't be useless possessions. But Shorty, 392 metres gained. I still think it wouldn't be a bad idea to try him in other parts of the ground as well. If things aren't working in the second half, mix it up a bit. Chuck him in the midfield, chuck him on the wing, and not just him. This is going to be the same thing for a lot of players, to be honest. But yeah, while things are going your way and working how you want them to, i.e. the first half, great, leave it all as it is. But when it doesn't start working for you, and I know Usain that have thrown the magnets around a bit, but throw a few more around, just try some stuff. Jacob Hopper was second highest disposal getter, 25 touches, 6 marks, 2 tackles, 3 clearances. Jack Ross, 21 disposals, 9 marks, 3 clearances, 3 tackles, 1 clearance. So for Hopper and Ross, and actually I'll read the next 2 as well, because they form part of the midfield brigade, and we'll talk about them as a group. Nankervis, 21 disposals, 3 marks, still no tackles, which is really surprising. 35 hit out, 7 clearances though, which is a nice number. And Tim Taranto had 20 disposals, 1 mark, 8 tackles, and 8 clearances. I also think from memory that Tim Taranto was in our top 3, maybe even top 2 for pressure acts on the ground. So look, while Taranto's not getting a bunch of the ball at the moment, he did cop a heavy tag again this week, and I think it's something he's going to have to get used to. I think if you're an opposition club, it's an easy one to identify. One way to break us down very quickly is by stifling our midfield, which already is needing a bit of help and support. Like, we need a lot of things to go our way to get the game on our terms. So by just sitting someone on Taranto, it gives them a massive upper hand. But look, the 8 tackles I think is a big tick for Tim Taranto. The highest top 2 for pressure acts is a big tick for Tim Taranto. And I know a lot of people will say they saw him jogging from contest to contest, and maybe optically and visually that was happening in some cases, but he still laid 8 tackles and had the pressure act. So I don't think, when you see a player doing that, you kind of can't begrudge their work rate too much, I don't think, because that kind of suggests they were putting in some effort. But we just need to get a bit more of the ball. But in the first half, he was actually winning some good clearances and being quite constructive getting it out the middle. But I think as a collective, we kind of all fell away in that second half. Nankervis, I thought it was a reasonably good bounce back game. And look, no tackles are still a little bit of a shock. I'm not going to say a concern. I'm going to say more of a shock. But 7 clearances, 3 marks. It was a huge battle with Rowan Marshall, who's a very, very good ruckman in his own right. And you know what? Marshall did what I thought DeConing was going to do and push forward more to try and work him over, which worked a couple of times. I think the problem is I'm just not sure if we've landed on the right support mechanism for Nank when he's not rucking. I know Jacob Blight did another okay job while doing so, but even Uze after the game sort of admitted that maybe moving him from the back half to ruck wasn't the ideal way to do it, because then it weakens our back structure, which left them a bit more open and susceptible to easy goals. So I think they were talking about maybe doing it by playing Blight forward and moving someone from the forward line to ruck instead. So that's a bit of a work in progress, I think, to get that right. And look, for Adam Uze to put his hand up publicly in a press conference and say that he got moves wrong that damaged part of our game, whilst annoying, you've got to commend the guy for putting his hand up publicly and recognising things that he did wrong as well. And we've got to remember, Uze's still young, Uze's still learning. It's essentially his first year really having a crack at it in a rebuilt side. So I respect him for putting his hand up for that, and he's going to keep learning just like the players are. Camden McIntosh, 20 disposals, 4 tackles. I thought he did a really good job on McRae in that first half, who tore the game apart last week. He had 39 touches, I think, the week before. What I'm not sure about is what we did in the second half that didn't allow, or why we weren't persisting with that, or why McIntosh didn't go to somebody else, whether it was Malira or Sinclair or whoever it might be. But he just didn't seem to be doing the same tagging role, which I don't quite understand. Good to see him kick a goal, though, the other way, which is always nice. But I just want to see him do the tagging for 4 quarters. There must be method and reason to why it didn't happen. Maybe it's a bit more to do with St Kilda and their work rate and the way they structured up, not allowing it to happen. So maybe we've got to give some more credit there to them. But I just think for us to be able to stay in games in some capacity, it's going to require someone like McIntosh to sacrifice for the full 4 quarters. We just can't afford to try and go head-to-head with opposition midfield. We aren't at that level yet, and we've got to try and shut at least one of them down for a whole game to give ourselves a chance. Exactly like what he did to Cripps. That's probably the more perplexing part. We did it in round 1 and it worked, and I'm not saying that if we did it in round 2 and 3, the same result would have happened, but maybe we could have prolonged how long it would have taken for the damage to kind of happen. I don't know. Thompson Dow, 20 disposals, 4 marks, 3 clearances, 1 tackle. I thought he did okay again. For some reason, I see him being one of the whipping boys, but again, he was probably top. I think he was top 2 for pressure acts as well. So everyone wanting to talk about work rate, effort, and intensity, you can't knock him on that because he's chasing people. He's putting the pressure on players, which is exactly what people are saying or claiming that we're not seeing enough of from the team. He's doing it. So I think we should stop riding Thompson Dow for that. Luke Traynor, 18 disposals, 6 marks, 2 tackles. He just looked at home, didn't he? And I know it can't be an easy job for a young kid playing in his 3rd game when the ball's coming down to the back line at an absolute rate of knots sometimes. But when he gets the ball, he looks composed. He probably had 1 kick that was maybe a little bit off. But geez, there's a lot to like about Luke Traynor. And I know he's probably going to burn out and tire at some point during the year, but you're 100% playing him every week until that starts to happen because he's just going to keep getting better and better the more settled he feels. So I think we're on to a winner there with Luke Traynor. I'm really loving what I'm seeing with him. Nathan Broad, 18 disposals, 10 marks. Look, the backline's an interesting one because, again, it's like how much of it were we let down by the midfield, not putting pressure on, and then the Saints getting a lot of easy ball forward versus how much of the backline was unorganised. Now, I'm not saying it's Broad's fault. I think Uze actually kind of nailed it when he said that by moving Blight, it kind of threw the backline into a little bit of chaos. But I suppose it's where you kind of hope where your elder statesmen can somehow step up and reorganise the ship while being out there and settle things down. But there was just too much going against him to stop it, unfortunately. But yeah, look, Broady will keep trying his guts out week in, week out for you, though. So at least we know we're going to get there. Jacob Blight, 18 disposals, 12 marks, 7 hit-outs, 1 clearance. I really liked his game. I thought he was probably in our top 5. Probably had that 1 blemish on the wing early days when we were playing really well, where he dropped at mark and it spilt out of bounds where he could have been on a counter-attack. That's just a learning thing, an experience thing. That he'll get better with that over time. But the fact, again, he was able to go into the ruck in a position that's not really accustomed to him and do an okay job. But to Uze's point, like we said earlier, they've got to now rework where his starting position is so that it doesn't impact us too greatly when he's moved from that spot to ruck. If we're not going to play 2 ruckmen, which it doesn't seem like we will, although they might surprise us and bring in Samson Ryan next week to help co-ruck with Nankervis, who knows. But yeah, if they're going to persist with Blight rucking, it almost feels like he has to play forward to be able to execute that, just so we don't make the backline unstable, because we're already struggling a little bit with the ball going in there quickly. We don't need even further instability. James Trezise, 15 disposals, 5 tackles, 5 marks, 3 clearances. I felt it was a bit of a a nothing game might sound harsh, but I didn't really see him shine, didn't really see him do too much bad. He had a couple of errors, but I think we're at a point where we can't be hanging people for errors in the way we're playing the game, because in the second half, they all had errors. It wasn't just isolated to one or two players, but again, another very, very young player that we've got to persist with and keep putting him in the deep end and see what he does. Tom Brown, 14 disposals, 8 marks, 2 tackles, and a lovely goal as well. That kick honestly went about 60 metres, I reckon, maybe 65. I don't know whether I'm exaggerating or not. It felt like he kicked it from about 50, 55, and ended up in the 8th row. Monster kick, and this is what I mean about he's got a genuine weapon of a boot, and we have to somehow work out how we can utilise that more, whether it's by clearing zones, by getting the ball in his hands off half-back. If we've got players who have marked it 90 metres out from goal, for example, maybe he needs to get on the bike and wrap around him, get a handball, so we can kick it 65 as opposed to it being maybe 45 or 50. I don't know, small things like that I think can help change the way our forward 50 entries are, and especially if we do it quickly. Lynch is, quite often we saw Tom Lynch deep in the goal square, putting his hand up, wanting the ball kicked long to him, but maybe the player with the ball just didn't have the distance in it to get it to him, whereas someone like Tom Brown might. So maybe that's something we've got to consider. Move it quicker, get it in Tom Brown's hand, because he's a monster kick. Nick Vlaston, 13 disposals, 5 marks, 1 tackle. We saw him go forward a bit too, which I didn't mind. Again, like when things aren't going your way, I'm not against trying things like that whatsoever. There's nothing to lose. It's worked before in previous years. So another option potentially up our sleeve to throw up forward. You know he's a good mark. You know he's a good scrapper and competitor at ground level. And he has shown he can kick a goal too. So don't mind that. But again, it was a bit of a dirty day for all defenders. So good to see him get some time elsewhere. Ben Miller, 12 disposals, 10 marks, 2 tackles. Early days in that first half, I thought he was really good again. Carving a lot of one-on-one contests, competing well. The backline was working pretty uniform and it held up nicely. The second half, again, you don't know how much to read into it, but yeah, a dirty day for defenders in totality, like I just said. But I thought if we look at the first half in isolation, Miller didn't do so bad, and he sort of kept showing why he's got that really good one-on-one record against opponents. We just need to work out how we can get this to happen across 4 quarters for the whole backline. Seth Campbell, arguably our best player for the day, 12 disposals, 3 marks, 2 tackles, 3 goals. Very unlucky not to have a 4th. That just shaved the post, didn't it? You can just tell he's going to be a very, very good long-term player, Seth Campbell. He's got X factor, he's got class, he's got great goal sense, good speed. Still, for me, the next progression, I would love to see him rotate through the middle a bit more. I think he did, or maybe it was Mansell a little bit later in the game as well. But when you can see the midfield mix isn't working, which usually happens for a half of football at least, that's when you need to start putting some of these other kids in there and give them a crack, because whatever we were doing is being found out and not working anymore. So mix it up. But Seth Campbell, there's a lot to like about him, honestly. And I really, really hope he keeps taking his game to level each week. 3 goals, super return, mate, super return. Tyler Sonzi, 10 disposals, 4 marks, 1 tackle, 1 clearance, but the stat that is the most annoying, 0 centre bounces attended. On the back of him attending bulk centre bounces for the VFL and getting 9 clearances. Once again, we've gone through another AFL game where he's not taken part in the centre bounce structure whatsoever. There has to be a reason behind it. There has to be something that we don't know as to why they're not doing it. And I'm not saying they do it from the start of the game, because I understand if you've got you've got your Taranto, Hopper, Ross, that you want to roll with at the start of the game, completely understand. And for all intents and purposes, it was working in the first half. But once the Saints put, 40, 50 points on us in the second half, change it up. Give the kid a go in there so we can see if he can replicate what he does at VFL level in AFL level. And you know what? If the problem or the concern is his lack of defensive accountability, is it really any different to what we were seeing in the second half anyway? Are we actually worse off by having him in there versus a Taranto, Hopper or Ross, who probably weren't doing that anyway in the second half? Probably not. So you may as well put him in there, see if he can replicate what he can do at VFL at AFL level, and at least let us understand and know what we've got in there. I just can't understand why we don't do it, and I would love to hear an explanation as to why, because you know what's going to happen. He's going to go back to the VFL in 1 or 2 weeks' time. He's going to get another 35 touches in the midfield, 10 clearances, and come back into the AFL level and play at half forward again. It just doesn't make sense, but there has to be an underlying reason that we don't know about. So a frustrating game. I'm frustrated for Sonzi, not at him, but for him, because he can clearly find the ball. We just haven't given him the chance to do it. Steely Green, 10 disposals, 3 marks, 2 tackles. I thought he did okay again, not a massive standout game. He could be another one that has a bit of a role to play as a defensive forward potentially when there's players like Wayne Dean Malira who get off the leash. Maybe you give him a role and just say, hey, this is your job for the day. You're going to learn a heap from it and just run with them. So, yeah, look, I think he's definitely worth persisting with, though. I think he shows enough glimpses that you're like, yeah, you can see he's going to get there and make it. We've just got to get the games into him. Sammy Lawler, 9 disposals, 5 marks, 1 tackle, 1 clearance. Look, the first half of Sammy Lawler was really, really good. I thought anyway, he was probably one of our only players that was able to take off that 45-degree angle kick into the middle of the ground and actually execute it perfectly. He did it about 2 or 3 times, and he hit every single one of the passes. He is a great kicker of the football, and it's a shame he doesn't get a bit more. And when the team turns to crap in the second half, it's really difficult for young kids to get involved in a game when the whole collective unit's falling apart. It's just too tricky. But then I saw a suggestion on Twitter, and I might make a separate video about this because it's worth exploring. Do we consider putting him on half-back rather than half-forward as his resting spot and utilise his foot skills off the half-back line so we can actually get a few more disposals and actually hurt teams with it? Not the worst idea, because the way the ball's getting to him at the forward line is definitely not helpful. Even our experienced players can't mark that stuff, so maybe why not flip it around? Ryan Mansell, 8 marks. 8 disposals, 2 marks, 2 tackles. Yeah, didn't have a massive game. Obviously, he's going to be up in the media spotlight and scrutiny for that incident. All I'll say is, if they've changed the rules now, then what hope do we have? Caleb Smith coming on as sub, 7 disposals, 3 marks. You'd like to see Caleb Smith get a full game. Again, he's another one of those players who can use the ball quite well, but we obviously haven't given him a lot of opportunity to do so. I feel like that on the back of this, he will probably go back to the VFL to get a full game. He had 25% time on ground, which isn't really that high. But he does some nice things when he's got it. It just doesn't happen often enough because he's probably not on the ground for long enough. So not entirely his fault. I mean, he's coming onto the ground when we're 50, 60 points down and we're running in gear 1 or 2, right? So not ideal for a sub. Tom Lynch, 7 disposals, 4 marks, 1 tackle, 1 goal. Look, he definitely helps us structurally. The Saints were wearing him like a glove, as they should. It makes sense for them. I just think that we're really hampering his impact by the way we deliver the ball currently. You could see him getting a little bit vocal and frustrated with the ball not being kicked in quick enough, which I've been harping on about for a few weeks as well. So hopefully we can help improve that just to give him a chance, because I think he backs himself one-on-one, or even if he's got to jump into a pack. But the moment we let 8 St Kilda players get back into defence, there's no point. You've lost your chance. So yeah, he'll keep fighting away. He'll keep, showing up and being his physical self, and we're just going to try and make it a bit easier for him. Jacob Bauer, 4 disposals, 2 marks, kicked a goal. Look, his first quarter was quite good. He had that really nice lead-up mark on the wing, took a great strong overhead grab, and then wheeled around and got it inside 50, which I think resulted. I'm not sure if it was a goal or at least a shot on goal. But then he kind of faded quite badly and didn't have much impact afterwards. And Harry Armstrong, 2 disposals, 2 handballs. 2 disposals that were 2 handballs, and didn't trouble the stat line outside of that. A bit of a dirty day for Harry. I'm not going to hold it against him. It's his 3rd game. There's going to be inconsistencies. It's just part and parcel with their development and growth. And you know what, like we sort of spoke about pre-season, the way this is going to probably work is we're probably going to see some of these young kids for 3 or 4 weeks. Then we might see a different block of 3 or 4 weeks from other players, because you got to just keep swapping him in and out. It might be good for him to go back to the VFL and find form, start dominating a bit, get his hands on the footy a bit more, kick some more goals, feel good about himself. So yeah, I think I wouldn't be shocked if we start trying something else in the next week or 2, just as part of a process to rotate some more names through the AFL level. From a team stat perspective, there's a couple of things that stood out. St Kilda's efficiency inside 50 was 64.3%, which is about 10% up on their average. Well done to them firstly. That's a really good number to get. But I think a lot of that comes down to the lack of pressure we were applying and the ease at which they were able to get the ball inside 50. Because the stat that goes along with that is the marks inside 50. I think they had 21 marks inside 50, which is an extraordinary amount. Where is it? 21 marks inside 50 to 7 for Richmond. That's a crazy number. Their 2015 average is 15.3. So to allow that many, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of games if you allow that many marks inside 50. But look, there you go. That is the debrief for the St Kilda Richmond game. Unfortunately, it's going to be a tale of two halves for a lot of the year, like we said. Some small green shoots, though. The young kids are still having a crack and doing their best. Maybe we'll see a few more new faces in the coming weeks as we rotate a few out, potentially. But yeah, that's where we're at. Unfortunately, the loss to St Kilda hurts a little bit, but we wait and see how we bounce back against the Brisbane Lions, which will be a tough ask, believe me. But again, all we want to see is some youth coming through, some exuberance, some excitement. We want to see pressure and we want to see intensity for as long as we can sustain it, and then hopefully we'll keep building from there. But let us know what you thought in the comments below of the game. Who was your 5-4-3-2-1? And let us know what you think the Tigers could improve on. And until the next one, go Tigers.